called the wave bubble. It's an open source GPS jammer developed by Limor Fried, a graduate student at MIT. And Limor calls it a tool for reclaiming our personal space. With a flip of the switch, you create a bubble around you within which GPS signals can't reside. They get drowned out by the bubble. And Limor designed this in part because, like Carol, she felt threatened by GPS tracking. Then she posted her design to the web. And if you don't have time to build your own, you can buy one. Chinese manufacturers now sell thousands of nearly identical devices on the internet. So you might be thinking, the wave bubble sounds great. I should have one. Might come in handy if somebody ever puts a tracking device on my car. But you should be aware that its use is very much illegal in the United States. And why is that? Well, because it's not a bubble at all. Its jamming signals don't stop at the edge of your personal space or at the edge of your car. They go on to jam innocent GPS receivers for miles around you. Now, if you're Carol or Limor, or someone who feels threatened by GPS tracking, it might not feel wrong to turn on a wave bubble. But in fact, the results can be disastrous. Imagine, for example, you're the captain of a cruise ship trying to make your way through a thick fog, and some passenger in the back turns on a wave bubble. All of a sudden, your GPS readout goes blank. And now it's just you and the fog and whatever you can pull off the radar system if you remember how to work it. In fact, they don't update or upkeep lighthouses anymore. And LORAN, the only backup to GPS, was discontinued last year. Our modern society has a special relationship with GPS. We're almost blindly reliant on it. It's built deeply into our systems and infrastructure. Some call it the invisible utility.
You see them on almost every block. A Ring or some form of doorbell camera system, the small home security device gaining significant popularity over the last decade. But as their use has grown, so has the ability of hackers.
If you're relying on wireless to be a security thing, you're looking at it wrong.
Chris Burns, the owner of Techie Gurus, says security cameras that use Wi-Fi to record are more about convenience than actual security because Wi-Fi can be easily disrupted, preventing the camera from capturing who is around your home. And criminals are catching on. A woman in Detroit found out the hard way when she says hours of her Ring camera footage were missing during the same time her blue Trailblazer was stolen from her driveway on August 14th. Similar stories popping up across the country. And Burns says he knows why.
Wireless signals are very easy to jam or block.
By using a deauthor or Wi-Fi jamming device.
Like this one right here.
A deauthor, which can be the size of an Apple Watch, will overwhelm a Wi-Fi system, forcing the doorbell camera to stop recording if you stand close enough. The accessory only costing about $10 to $50 and can be found on Amazon.
But a jammer is going to cost you maybe $150 to $1,000 depending on what you're trying to do.
And it's highly illegal, so it's more difficult to find. But a powerful jammer can prevent an entire street from recording on its doorbell security camera with the switch of a button. We reached out to Ring about the issue, and a spokesperson sent a statement saying, quote, "Like any Wi-Fi enabled device, Wi-Fi signal interference may affect Ring device performance. If customers are experiencing issues with connectivity, we encourage them to reach out to Ring customer support." So how can customers protect themselves?
For true security, it should always be hardwired. It should always be plugged into like Ethernet or something like that.
Even more potent and more subversive than a wave bubble, and that is a GPS spoofer. The idea behind the GPS spoofer is simple. Instead of jamming the GPS signals, you fake them. You imitate them. And if you do it right, the device you're attacking doesn't even know it's being spoofed. So let me show you how this works. In any GPS receiver, there's a peak inside that corresponds to the authentic signals. These 3 red dots represent the tracking points that try to keep themselves centered on that peak. But if you send in a fake GPS signal, another peak pops up. And if you can get these 2 peaks perfectly aligned, the tracking points can't tell the difference, and they get hijacked by the stronger counterfeit signal, with the authentic peak getting forced off. At this point, the game is over. The fake signals now completely control this GPS receiver. So is this really possible? Can someone really manipulate the timing and positioning of a GPS receiver just like that with a spoofer? Well, the short answer is yes. The key is that civil GPS signals are completely open. They have no encryption. They have no authentication. They're wide open, vulnerable to a kind of spoofing attack. Even so, up until very recently, nobody worried about GPS spoofers. People figured that it would be too complex or too expensive for some hacker to build one. But I and a friend of mine from graduate school, we didn't see it that way. We knew it wasn't going to be so hard. And we wanted to be the first to build one so we could get out in front of the problem and help protect against GPS spoofing.
The difference. Today we are taking a look at it and explore how they work and whether or not they are safe to use. So a jammer works by creating a lot of noise to make others unable to understand any signals. Depending on the frequency of these signals, a jammer can target a specific communication protocol like GPS. Upon activation, a jammer will effectively block anyone in its physical and frequency range. Imagine you're talking to someone and suddenly there's music so loud your ears hurt. Only when you get out of range, the music isn't as loud anymore and you start to hear the surroundings again. That's essentially what a jammer does, just on different frequencies, depending on the protocol or device you're trying to target. There are a variety of jammers available for all kinds of frequency ranges, and they are probably all equally illegal to sell and use where you live. A jammer doesn't differentiate between devices. It affects anyone and anything in its range. They don't care if you want to access the internet or make an emergency phone call. They don't differentiate between the firefighters trying to communicate and a person just calling their friend. They just attack everything, which is why they are so illegal. As our world becomes more and more connected, we rely more and more on a variety of wireless communications. So disrupting these systems can cause huge irreversible damage. So given these circumstances, it probably isn't a surprise that the FCC even has a dedicated page about jammers, where they state the following. Signal jamming devices can prevent you and others from making 911 and other emergency calls and pose serious risks to public safety communications as well as interfere with other forms of day-to-day communications. The use of a phone jammer, GPS blocker, or other signal jamming device designed to intentionally block, jam, or interfere with authorized radio communications is a violation of federal law. There are no exemptions for use within a business, classroom, residence, or vehicle. It is also unlawful to advertise, sell, distribute, import, or otherwise market jamming devices to consumers in the United States. The use or marketing of a jammer in the United States may subject you to substantial monetary penalties, seizure of the unlawful equipment, and criminal sanctions, including imprisonment. So, Wi-Fi has a service called deauthentication. It is used to terminate the authentication of a client, or in other words, to disconnect the device from the network. It works by sending out a notification to the device that is to be disconnected. The device cannot refuse this packet. The deauth attack exploits this feature by continuously sending these deauthentication frames to a selected target. This way you can effectively block a connection. The target device is still able to reconnect, but it will only be able to establish a connection until it receives orders to disconnect again. So it's basically like going shopping, and every time you try to enter the building, someone commands you to leave. Luckily, Wi-Fi also has a solution for this exploit. It's called Protected Management Frames, or PMF for short. They were already introduced back in 2009 with the IEEE 802.11w standards. When this feature is active, the authentication frames and other management frames will be checked for integrity, and the receiver will ignore them if this check fails, which means you can't simply send such a packet because the receiver realizes that it comes from an unverified source. I wouldn't say it's impossible to break this security feature, but it makes the whole attack a lot harder. I created this project back in 2017. Back then, it was meant as a proof of concept for showcasing how easy it is to attack Wi-Fi networks using the deauthentication exploit. It runs on the ESP8266, a small, affordable, Arduino-compatible microcontroller that comes with 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi built in. Since version 3 of this project, it has evolved into a capable tool for Wi-Fi security research that can do much more than just simply deauth devices. If you want to learn more about the tool, be sure to check the video description. We will link everything. We also have a bunch of videos about this project on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check those out. While a very illegal jammer, as we just learned, works by emitting noise, a deauther doesn't allow you to simply attack all networks in range, because a deauthentication packet, which by the way is part of the official standard, is always addressed to a certain device or network, which means you have to first scan for nearby devices and select the targets and then start the attack. Basically, you need to find out the addresses of the devices you're trying to attack. So if you choose to attack critical infrastructure, you are responsible for that and you may have to face the consequences. But you can still use this to test the security of your own devices and networks, learn about Wi-Fi security, and teach others about the topic without ever risking to unintentionally block someone else's communication. If, however, you build a device to automatically find and deauthenticate all connections in range, you would end up with something that is very close to a jammer, and you can expect the same penalties for using such a device. So in short, a jammer attacks everything in its range without giving you control over which devices you attack. But a tool like our ESP8266 deauther attacks only those you tell it to for a maximum of 5 minutes, and is furthermore unable to attack everything at once. So as long as you use it for pen testing, research and educational purposes and don't cause any harm to others, you are fine.
I texted her, this is when I left the doctor's office, at 12:47. I texted her, I said, I've been to your house, you won't open the door, your alarm's set, your shoes are sitting inside, your car's home, I'm very concerned about you right now, I need you to text me or call me, I just want to know you're okay. If you don't want to talk to nobody, you don't want to be around anybody, I get it, it's fine, I just need to know you're okay. And right.
What happens now?
So then I'm talking to, within all of this time frame, I talked to Chris, I think I called Chris again. I talked to Cassie, and she said that she had talked to Chris, and he was supposed to be at his house and be there in 30 minutes, and I was like, well, I'm on my way back, so I called Chris at 12:41.
12:49 you said?
12:41.
12:41.
I called him at 12:41.
Okay. Did you talk to him at that point?
I can't remember if I talked to him or he didn't answer.
Okay.
I don't remember, because I called him again at 1:31, because by this time I'd already been back to the house.
Okay.
And Cassie had said that he was coming back and he'd be there in 30 minutes. So that was in the time frame that I was driving back to the house.
Okay.
So I don't remember if I don't remember if I talked to him, to be honest with you, at the 12:41.
Okay.
But I did talk to him at 1:31 because he wasn't home yet and he should have been there if it was only going to take him 30 minutes.
Right.
So, and by that time, I called the Frederick Police Department at 1:31 because I called Chris at 1:31. I called Chris and said, "Chris, where are you? You said you were going to be here in 30 minutes." He's like, "I'm on my way. I'm on I-70. I'm 45 minutes out." I said, "Well, I'm calling the police to do a health and wellness check." And I honestly couldn't tell you at that point what he said or didn't say.
Okay.
The phone call was, I don't even know. I will tell you details. I had an incoming call at 12:41 and it lasted for 42 seconds. I think that was him calling me to ask me if I was still at the house messing with the door.
At 12:41?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then at 1:31 I called him and that's when I told him that, like, you're not here. And then he still wasn't at the house. By 1:52 I called again and was like, "Where are you?" But I had already called the police then and they were on
What
their
time
way.
did you call the police?
1:33.
Did you call 911 or the regular line?
I called the non-emergency line
Okay.
because I didn't know whether they would consider that emergency or not, so I looked up the non-emergency line and called it.
Okay.
And then
So then 1:52, you said you got another phone call? Or you
I
Chris
called him again and I was like, "Where are you?" Because the police were there and they wanted to know how far out he was because we couldn't get in the house. The police couldn't even get in the house.
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, I don't want to break down the door if she's not in there." So the police officer didn't. So he was checking windows and stuff and trying to figure out how he could get in. And then he said he was like 10 or 15 minutes out or whatnot. I really don't remember.
Okay.
It was a very short conversation, though. I can tell you how long it lasted. I was on the phone with him for 17 seconds, so if that tells you.
Sure. That's short.
Yeah. So then Chris gets there, and
here. So when we're texting for like a few hours, like the cop thing was kind of weird, but he's like, "Nikki insisted they call the cops. Nikki insisted they call the cops." And I'm like, okay, and I'm just trying to figure out, well, like, what role does this woman play in this situation? Like, is she...
Did you know who she was?
No, I don't know any of his people. Like, this has been pretty, like, tight wrap for a while, which is probably a really good thing. Putting the house up. I don't know if it was they were putting it up on Monday, like the day they went missing, or if it was that they were calling the realtor to verify some stuff so they could put it up that week. Like, I don't quite remember. I just remember, like, the house, which was supposed to be, like, on the market, like, that week.
Did he name a realtor ever?
Yeah, he did, and I don't remember her name. It was a female.
Okay.
And I don't remember her name, like,
That's
at all.
fine.
I was trying to think of that for you guys not too long
Is
ago.
that the company? You got the company name?
No, he never gave me that. He, like, gave me her name, and it was the same name twice. He gave it to me once when he was in North Carolina, and then once the other time. Because I remember asking, I was like, "Who's that?" Because he's like, "I'm going to have her call so-and-so today and make sure everything's still good to go." And I was like, "Who's that?" He's like, "The realtor." It's like, oh. Or not today, but, like,
If it ever
for
comes to your
Monday.
mind, just
Yeah, I
Give me a
doubt
voicemail,
it. That
give
was
me a
such
call.
a...
Yeah.
I will try. I don't
lots of
remember
names.
who it was.
It's fine. It's not that critical.
I will tell you fucking what, you gotta be smoking deep fried dick if you think I give a chicken fried fuck about your opinion. I do not. Have a good day.